Hey, so this is going to be a comprehension lesson that I've used on a second grade class. And the second grade class is low performing, so therefore they need lots of direct instruction, lots of manipulatives, lots of hands-on opportunities. They're a variety of readers. Some may be reading on grade level, but a majority of them are reading below grade level. So a lot of accommodations have to be made, and we kind of have to meet the needs of a variety of different learners. So this particular lesson was done with a second grade class. So they're second grade, and the idea was narrative text. And with the narrative text, we read the story Cinderella. So the first step that we did, we broke this up into 3 different readings. On the first reading, every student has white cards, and I'm modeling the white cards on the pocket chart as they have these exact same white cards at their desk. Okay, so before I even begin with the white cards, the first thing I'm going to do is elicit conversation about a folk tale, explain to them what a folk tale is. We'll talk about how folk tales have been passed down, and this has been, Cinderella's been around for hundreds and hundreds of years. And their parents listened to Cinderella, their grandparents listened to Cinderella, and just to have an understanding of what a folk tale is even before we begin. Okay, so this would be the first read. The white cards are the first read. So on the first read, the teacher, so myself, I am the one doing the reading, so I'm doing pretty much all of the modeling on the first read. So, and the kids are using their finger, and they're just following along under, finger tracking under the words as I'm reading out loud to them. Okay, but the beauty is it allows for the hands-on experience because I have cards that they also have at their desk. So for example, the first card I have on here, card number 1, it says, "What does the title tell me about the story?" Okay, so these are questions I would ask them even before I start reading. Okay, what does the title tell me about the story? So I'm already going to elicit conversation about the title. After the card has been answered, I move my card over to the other side. So they'll see, so as everything moves over to this side, they know that they have answered those questions. Okay, I'm trying to teach them what to think about as they're reading, when they look at a book, all these skills that they need to explicitly learn what to look at when they begin to read. Okay, so the next card that we would decipher or come to says, "What do the pictures tell me?" So again, we would do a picture walk. We would walk through the book, talk about the stagecoach, talk about the fancy slipper, look at the fairy tale, talk about her dress, all those kinds of things, and to elicit conversation. Okay, so as we've answered this card, it moves over to the other side. At the same time, the kids are moving their cards from the left side of their desk to the right side of their desk. So they're doing it along with me. So we're putting our hand on the card. We're going to read the card. What do I already know about? Okay, so what do I already know about? What do we already know about fancy dresses? What do we already know about fancy shoes? What do we know about a fairy godmother? What do they already know? Okay, so as we answer it, it goes to this side. Okay, and the last but not least question is my questions. Okay, what do they think the story is going to be about? Start making those predictions of what they think it's going to be about. But it's not until all of these questions are answered and move over to the other side is my pre-reading complete. They have to know that they have to answer each and every one of these in order to be able to say that they have their pre-reading done. So again, on the first, this would be the first go around, all my cards, my pre-reading cards are going from the left to the right. The kids are doing the same thing at their desk. They have the cards lined up on the left-hand side, and they're going over to the right-hand side. And we're listening conversation, we're going through the book, looking at the book, and the kids are talking about the book, talking about the cards, showing ownership to the cards that and this is all happening while I'm reading, and they're following along listening to me read, okay? And this is day 1. On day 2, my white cards disappear, okay? And on day 2, which would be the second read day, on day 2, we have the yellow cards come out, okay? So same activity, same kind of thing happens on the second read. What differs on the second read is more in-depth questions and more ways I want them to think about the story on the second read. Okay, on the second read, again, I am going to be reading, because again, most of my kiddos are struggling readers and need help, but I am encouraging them to read aloud along with me if they can. So I'm encouraging as much as possible on this time for them still to be finger tracking, but reading aloud with me. As we're reading aloud, every time I'm able to stop and ask questions, again, the cards are going to move from the left side to the right side. So as I'm reading, for example, I may ask them, tell me who the characters are in the story. I want them to elicit conversation. So when I get to the part of the story that I feel like they can answer this question, they're going to move from the left side to the right side, who the story is about, okay? Again, as they're reading, this is the second read, we come across the what, okay? I might ask them, how do you think Cinderella felt when her fairy godmother showed up? And what do you think she might tell the fairy godmother? Okay, so again, when I'm coming to that part of the story, we're going to take our card and go from the left side to the right side, okay? And then, as again, I'm still in my second read, and I come across, and I may ask, when did it happen? Okay, this is a prime opportunity for my kids, exactly, that even telling time is hard, so that whole 12 o'clock thing is really hard. I might have them draw a clock and tell me, you know, picture that clock. Imagine that clock in your head, and I want you to show me what 12 o'clock, striking 12 o'clock looks like. Okay, I want them to really visualize things going on in the story. Okay, so again, as it's answered, the card moves from the left side to the right side. They're keeping track of these questions on their desk also with the cards going from the left to the right. Okay, where is the story happening? Okay, so where's the place? Where this castle, what, you know, so on and so forth. So where is the story taking place? So again, when it's answered, we're going from the left side to the right side. Where did the story take place? Okay, and we're going to wonder, and of course, I'm eliciting that conversation. I'm bringing things out. I may ask them why something happened in the story. So for example, why do you think so many people wanted to see this glass slipper and try it on? Why were so many people so eager to try on this glass slipper? Why? So when I'm able to elicit conversation from this, it goes over to the right side, and the kids at their desk are moving their cards, touching and saying why, answering why, and moving their card to the other side. Okay? How did she feel? How do you think Cinderella felt? How would you feel if you had to try on this fancy slipper? Okay? How would you feel? What would happen to you if that happened? So again, we're going to go take it from the left to the right. And we're doing this throughout the whole entire second read. I'm stopping to make them think, make them visualize, make them have conversation. There may be some different things that may differ in these. Is turn and talk with your neighbor and discuss what you think where it is. I might have them discuss what their opinion is, why did it happen, and then we would share out and then and continue on with the second read. Okay, and last but not least, what do I think will happen next? So again, what do I think will happen? Again, those predictions, what do I think is going to happen to Cinderella, and where do I think the story is going to go? Okay, so the whole point is from the second read, same thing. I want to take those cards, and my yellow means kind of slow down, think a little more, have a little more conversation, talk about things. But I want to elicit that conversation and really dig a little bit deeper as I'm reading and they're reading along with me, and I'm going to go from the left to the right with those cards. So that's on day 2. A lot of day 2 is peer-to-peer conversation, teacher to student conversation first, then peer-to-peer conversation, and we're just really digging into the story. Okay, so on day 3, which would be my third read, on day 3, the yellow cards go away, so now we have gone through the white card deck and we have gone through the yellow card deck. Okay, so the last card deck that we would use on day 3 is a red card deck. Red for stop. It's the last thing we're going to do. Okay, so on this day, again, the same thing. I'm going to have the cards lined up down across the side on the left-hand side. And this can be done more than one way. A lot of times I like to do this instead of me doing the reading on the third day. I like for, I do a lot of buddy reading with my higher readers, with the lower readers on the third day, where I'm not driving the reading, but I still pair them up accordingly so they still have kind of somebody to help them out for those people that aren't as strong. Or I may have a video, audio tape. Those are a couple options that I do, but I try to let them kind of be in charge of day 3 as much as possible. Okay, so on day 3, again, they're still going to read the story, most likely with a study buddy or a reading buddy, especially for the lower ones. And this time through, again, my conversation, I want them to be eliciting conversation that digs even deeper. But this time, as they answer the questions, not only will it go from the left to the right, but I am expecting them to record their thoughts, doesn't have to be complete sentences, but I do want them to show ownership and show their thinking, improve their thinking. It can be in a picture if they need it to be in a picture form, it can be one word, but I do want them to actually have their thoughts now on paper. Okay, so an example of a red card that they would come to, and again, by this point, I'm looking for them to know to move their card from the left to the right and actually watch that conversation happen when they are moving their card and talking about the question that's on the card and showing that they understand that they're stopping to think about the story. Do they understand the story? Do they understand what's going on? Do they get the gist of the story to even be able to answer the question, or do they need to go back and reread to be able to answer things? Okay, so who were the main characters? So as again, that by this point should be pretty clear. Okay, so the questions are that whole Bloom's Bloom's level questions should be all into place. So obviously this is a lower level question, so they should easily be able to go back in the text and write down the words, write down the characters' names if they need to. So they're going to move their card over with their partner from this side to this side, but I do expect for both, even if they have a study buddy or a reading buddy, both people are writing the question down, or not the question, but their answers, so their thoughts. I want to see their thoughts. It doesn't have to be exactly what their partner thinks. Okay? So as they're reading and they're engaging in the story and the story's moving on, another question looks like describe the main character. Okay, so not only who are they, but describe them to me. Use some adjectives. Do things that come to your mind that would describe that character, to set the mood, set the tone of the story. Okay, so when they're able to be at a point in the story, they feel like they can answer that, they're going to answer it and move their card over. Okay, another one is the setting. Where does the story take place? Again, this one shouldn't be so hard. They have to decipher a little bit. It might not tell us exactly where, but through pictures, through the picture walk, through keywords, clues in the story, they should be able to tell me where the setting of it's taking place. They're going to answer it. It's going to go from the left to the right. So they know that they're asking themselves the questions that I want them to ask themselves as they're reading. Okay? They're going to come to describe the setting. Okay, so describe the setting. What does it look like? What in the story makes you think that it even looks like that? Because it might not say. You might have to use clues of give you a feeling that the setting feels that way. Okay, again, it's going to go from the left to the right. Okay, what was the problem? Okay, and this may more than likely relate to the characters. Okay, so Explain the problem. What's going on in the story? What is the problem? Okay. How was the problem solved? And explain how it was solved. Tell me exactly how was it solved. Okay. Why did? And this could be a couple different things, but more than likely elaborate on something. Why did it happen? Why did something happen in the story? Why did Cinderella want that slipper so bad? Why did the sisters want the slipper so bad? Why did that, was it so important when that clock struck 12 that was such a crucial point? Why did that matter? And the last question that they would have on their third read is, give examples of when blank felt blank. And this would be up to, they could use this as choice. They would fill it in, maybe give examples of when Cinderella felt happy, or maybe another group chooses when Cinderella felt sad, or when the stepsister felt angry. Okay? This elicits their own personal opinions, their thoughts, and they can take that how they want. So in this case, the red obviously stopped, so that is on the third read. I'm doing a lot of observation on the third read. I'm watching them interact with their reading buddy. I'm watching, can they move their cards, and are they moving their cards as they're answering and engaging in conversation, and deeper conversation from the left to the right. Okay? When they are finished, when we're finished with this task, they independently, we move on to the final task, which is a story frame. So the story frame is presented to the students, and they independently need to fill in the story frame for their summary. Okay? So the narrative story frame, the story takes place blank. Blank is a character in the story who blank. A problem occurs when blank. After that, and blank, the problem is solved when blank. The story ends with. So this, I want their thoughts. I want that, but the story frame helps my kiddos to be able to tell me what their thoughts are, and to be able to answer it without getting so caught up in the actual paragraph form, and not turn into a huge writing assignment, but more of a comprehension assignment. Because if I do not give them the story frame, they very rarely will be able to answer the questions that I'm looking for to see if they even understand the story, even understand what was going on. Okay. And then when they are finished with that, they are given a little self-assessment, like a little rubric. And I always like for them to fill it out. It's pretty self-explanatory, but I do like for them to kind of show ownership, that hopefully I can see if the study buddies partners were working, were they able to elicit that conversation. And of course I'm looking and watching, you know, throughout the steps at all times, and especially on the third step, But I still, the questions I'm asking reflect back to the same tasks I'm asking them to do on the cards. So for example, I thought about the topic before I read. That would kind of be like my pre-reading on the white cards, showing them, going back to those white cards, that we have to think about the topic, think about folktales before we even read. I noticed the important story elements as I was reading. Okay, so that would kind of be more in line with my yellow cards, the who, what, when, where, why, how. Those would be the story elements of, did I pick up on those as I was reading? Yes, sometimes, or no. I thought about the main character's actions, so those feelings, how do you think she felt? When I thought about the story elements, I understood better. Okay, so were your predictions correct? Were they not correct? What did you understand better by those feelings? And last but not least, I like this book, because obviously something like Cinderella, your boys probably not as much as the girls, but obviously it does fall in line with the folk tales, and it's a good classic. So, but it also kind of gives me an idea to taper the next lessons, and from there on out, what type of fairy tales or what type of folk tales to use. So this, definitely the scaffolding of the cards and the story frame for my group of kids, this is what I find most beneficial, and we have to do to really model and elicit. And over time, they'll move the cards over on their own and not need as much help, but they need constant reminders of teaching them what they should be thinking about when they're reading. So that is a great lesson for second grade, especially your struggling readers, your RTI kids, all that kind of stuff. It's a great research-based strategy for helping them with reading comprehension.